Got it. All right. Thanks for joining the Make Guitar podcast. It is the 24th of July, 2022, as we're recording this. And today we're going to talk about, well, I forgot. We'll figure it out when we get there. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing pretty good, Kirk. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's just having a semi-productive Sunday, and it's a good time to check in, talk about making pedals and synthesizers.
I got one for you. So for people that want to build guitar pedals, I just posted a blog post with some simple one transistor circuits that you can build and links to documentation on how to build them.
Great.
I also linked to a video where I didn't create the video, someone else did, but the video is really great. The guy in the video walks through creating, basically it's like an Electra. It's like a clone of the EQD Aero, which is an Electra circuit, right? Just creating that on strip board, and he explains all the parts, how to use strip board, how to solder. He goes through everything. So there's a link to that video, and then there's a few circuits that I linked to, and I linked information on building with strip board and with perf board. So if you followed the first class that I posted on my blog, which was all about just basic electronics with transistors, then you could build transistor circuit now.
Great. Link will be in the description. I have to find that recipe for the Electra with the different clipping diodes, because that would be a good update. I'll put that in the comments of your blog post.
Oh yeah, cool. That would be like your advanced topic or extra credit project, right?
It is a little bit advanced.
Just get the Electra working, and then add the clipping options. Yeah. Actually, I got this pedal over here. This is Joe Gore's Gross pedal.
Oh, did you just get it?
Yeah, I just got this, right? I haven't really used it, to be honest, right? And so there it is right there, right? And this is basically the Electra circuit, but you see it has all these extra knobs. Like the Electra just had a volume knob, right? And the one we built had an extra knob and a couple 12 position switches or something for the different diodes. This has these two multi-position switches that choose different diodes, and then it has a switch that adds them together. So you can do like every single diode combination you could imagine. But basically, at its heart, if you boiled it all down to the core circuit, it's the Electra.
Okay.
Is that funny? So Electra is an okay pedal. I guess people are doing stuff with it. Earthquaker has a couple pedals that are based on the Electra.
I like it. It's a kind of a subtle distortion. It's not like it reminds me of like the Klon Centaur. It's not really like heavy distortion or overdrive.
Yeah. The Klon, I built a couple clones. I think I built 2 clones. Okay. And I bought one too. I bought like one of those little mini pedals that's a Klon clone, And every time I use the Klon, I don't like it, right? I'm like, I don't really like this, And then I was watching a video, I forget who it was, but it was somebody, and they were talking about the Klon circuit, and they were kind of analyzing it and then talking about how it works. And basically what they said is everybody that uses the Klon doesn't turn the gain up to where it's clipping. They're using it just for the boost. And the idea is to boost your tube amp, and it works with certain amps in particular. So I think if I recall, they said it was like Fender amps, like boosting your Fender amps, so you get like some kind of juicy edge of breakup sounds, but at a reasonable volume. And then they were like, that's the magic of the Klon. And then the guy in the video, he took a sine wave and passed it through the Klon and then looked at it on the scope, and you could see that it wasn't really getting clipped. And he's like, yeah. And I don't know, this was like maybe his opinion, but he kind of seemed pretty sure of it, that, most people are using it in this zone before the clipping starts to kick in. And so when I use it, I always turn the gain up just because I'm like, I want to hear some distortion, you know?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't sound that great, you know? So maybe I'm just not using it correctly, you know? Or it doesn't work with the gear that I have. Like I have like a Fender Bassman, but maybe that's not an ideal amp for the Klon, you know?
Probably not. I mean, because the Fender Bassman's a really great clean amp.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not really like I'm trying to push the amp into breakup. I also have a pedal to create the distortion, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, my main amp that I use at the studio is the Blues Junior, and that's a good pedal platform. And it's a good, edge of breakup amp, but I also really like a clean sound. Um, so when I go for distortion, I don't really use the uh the tube screamer, which is sort of like that's the sound I like, the tube screamer with the edge of breakup Fender amp. But like to get more distortion, um I need a I need more distortion. I need like a higher gain pedal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's like it's one of those things that like Rhett Schill is sort of famous for hating the tube screamer. Probably for the similar reason that he likes a clean amp and then to have his distortion coming out of a pedal.
Yeah. Yeah, I like a good fuzz. Like, and fuzz is not distortion, like from the amp. It's different, you know, and I kind of like that, you know, it's kind of hairier, you know,
Yeah.
right? But anyway, yeah, so that's a talk there. People can go check out that blog post and then start building some pedals. We'd like to hear about it, you know. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
post some more, a post in the future for 2 transistor circuits to build.
Oh,
So,
that'd be
you know, if
good.
you're just starting, build the 1 transistor circuit and then move on to 2 transistors, you know.
That'd be great. Yeah, and I think it'd be good to maybe talk about like some resources that people have available to them. Like if you start building pedals and then you run into trouble, um, don't bail out. Go get on a forum and of course learn how to use a forum so you're not the newbie who's asking for a lot of help without like contributing to the community. Um, but there are people who like to help nurture the community and bring people up in it. So um, there are resources, and we should maybe talk about resources for you know for helping like adding guidance when you're on your journey.
Yeah, yeah. Use the r/pedals on Reddit is a good one. It's r/DIY pedals is good. The DIY stomp boxes is the best one. They have a sub forum called build your stomp box or something like that, or building stomp boxes, you know, is like and just that everybody posts there. There's a lot of friendly people. There are a lot of really knowledgeable people, you know. So I'd go to those 2 places are the best. And there's a bunch more too, like the Telecaster forum has a sub forum in the DIY section for pedal building. The Mad Bean pedals has a forum, you know,
Oh,
people,
really? They have their own forum?
yeah, they do. Yeah.
Well, that's very good. Very
Got
good.
a lot of people posting to it. The pedal PCB, they sell PCBs, but they have a forum, and you know, you can post even if you're not building one of their PCBs, you can still post, you know, about it there. People will still answer your questions, you know.
Yeah, that's great. It's probably also a good place if you're looking for a PCB, like you're looking for a particular type of pedal and you don't know where to get the PCB for it. Get recommendations about, DIY projects,
Yeah, yeah, right.
commercial ones as well.
Yeah, so hopefully that'll get people started there. Hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
Do you got any projects this week?
Um, well, we'll see. I'm trying to do everything now. I'm just trying to do like 5 minutes on every project. Um, I've got, parts on their way. I ordered a pickup winder from the Dove Canyon company, who started out when they started making these pickup winders. They were a kit, and then they decided that they would put out a finished version that you can buy. So I got the finished version. Just I want to be able to start winding pickups. So I need to like, get supplies for that and then start winding pickups. I'm pretty excited about that. I think that's going to be fun. I'll film it when I make my first pickup and share my experience on that. I know other people have used this pickup winder on YouTube, but we'll do it again.
Nice. I'm
How about
looking
you?
forward to seeing some DIY pickups.
Yeah. I mean, they might not be pretty at first, but we'll see.
I bet it takes a little bit of practice to get the winder to do it, to wind evenly, you know?
Yeah, I think so, because there's like a motion, like the Dove Canyon company, the guy has a YouTube channel, and there's like 5 videos all together, but like he shows how you do that motion to get the wire to wind evenly onto the bobbin. And then he has a whole separate one showing you how to use how to use the what do you call it? It's the thing that the wire comes on. It would be called a bobbin, like if you were in
Spool.
the spool, but yeah. And he just has it on the ground between his feet while he's winding,
Oh, weird.
and you don't have to do anything else. So like, oh, that's easy. Just put it
Oh,
on the
weird.
ground. The wire will just come off
Yeah.
the spool.
I'd always be worried like you'd break the wire while it was winding.
Mhm.
There's like too much tension or it gets caught on something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think there's probably a technique to avoiding, any kind of constriction or too much tension.
Yeah. How much, I wonder how much the wire costs, like how much, because you probably need a lot of wire, right? So a
Yeah.
spool of wire, I wonder what that cost is on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, StuMac, everything is expensive at StuMac, but they have like a spool of I think it says on the ad or on the post, but it's like $50 for a spool of wire.
Hmm. How many pickups can you make for the spool with the one spool?
I don't know. I'd have to do the math.
Just
But
curious.
yeah, maybe I'll make a post. I'll make a blog post for you on using on the metrics of DIY pickup building.
Oh, great one. Yeah, that sounds good.
There's certain things like um, when you make a pickup, you need the bobbin, you need magnets, you need any hardware that holds the whole thing together. Um, you probably need covers depending on what kind of pickup it is, and you need those little grommet things, and you need the flat work. For certain kinds of pickups, there's different requirements. Like a humbucker has that big base plate, all that. So like if you have to buy all that stuff, let's say you buy it from StuMac, and that's like immediately your pickup costs like almost $20 just for the parts without wire, and then you have to add the wire
Wow.
and your labor.
That's pretty steep.
Yeah, and then put it in a box. I mean, you can buy pickups on Guitar Fetish for like $25 a piece. So how do they afford to do it?
Yeah.
They don't buy their stuff from StuMac. That's
Yeah, probably not.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a couple projects this week. So I made this mother fuzz. So this is a big muff with a James tone stack on it. So the James tone stack is kind of like the tone control they had on Orange amps, where it's like a treble and bass control. So there's no
Okay.
middle, right? And it sounds pretty good. This has some noise in it. The big muff's kind of high gain, so there's noise. I thought this was a little too noisy, so I might have to look at it, maybe revise the circuit board, but it did work. Sounded okay, except for the noise, right?
May I ask, what's the circuit board? Is it your Big Muff circuit board, or is it this special Mother Fuzz circuit board?
It's the Mother Fuzz circuit board. It's a new one.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking for it here. It's in this other box here.
So the tone control, I guess you couldn't use your regular Big Muff circuit board and have that James tone control.
Well, the Big Muff has a Big Muff tone circuit. So it basically goes from treble to bass.
Okay.
And the way that it works, like the way the parts and the values interact, because you only have the one control, right? So it's kind of like a high pass filter and a low pass filter on the other side, right? And when you mix them together, you usually get this little dip, right? So in the middle, you get this scooped sound, which is actually kind of a classic Big Muff sound. Some people like it. Some people complain. They're like, I don't like the scoop, right? You know, I want some mids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with the James tone stack, you can't, you basically, it's hard to get rid of the mid scoop. You can do it, but it kind of limits some of the other choices, right? And people have a mod that's a very common mod for the Big Muff where you add another pot that controls how much mids, but then you have two controls anyway, right? So the James tone stack basically is like a treble control, like goes from treble cut to treble boost. Not really boost, but it's like full treble to cut treble, right? And then the bass is the same way. And so like if you, depending on where you put the controls, like if you turn them both up, you get kind of a scoop mid sound. If you put them both kind of a little bit like maybe 10 o'clock, you get kind of a, or actually if you put them both about like 1 o'clock, you get like a mid boost, like a mid hump, you know? So it's kind of cool, you know, and you can have a little more bass, a little less treble, a little more treble, a little more bass, right? You know, you know, it's kind of cool, gives you more options, you know? Yeah, the circuit board is here. This is the circuit board here.
Nice.
Yeah. This
That's
also
about
has
the
a
same size
couple
of
other small changes. The Big Muff has kind of a lower impedance input because it has a like a BJT transistor on the input, and so it's kind of got low impedance. It's maybe that's part of the sound, and maybe people like it, but this has a JFET input, so it's got a high impedance input, and it's got a JFET on the output too. So it's a little bit different, but the middle section is just like the Big Muff. It's just basically got the two transistors and the clipping diodes and stuff.
Okay. Where do you think the noise is coming in?
That's a good question. I don't know. I just built this last night, so I'm not sure. It could be my layout, you know, right? Could be the layout here. Could be, it's pretty tight too. I don't know if you can see it there, but I used a bunch of those like to make it all fit because there's some extra parts here. It's got a few more parts, extra transistor, you know, than the regular Big Muff. And so I use these 8-watt resistors, so they're smaller, so they could cram more into the space. So everything is a tighter fit. So maybe the proximity of the parts is what's causing the noise. So maybe if I move the parts around and lay them out a little better, it'll have less noise. Maybe could be something else. Could be the wiring. I don't know. Yeah. I also built this. It's kind of a clone of the Timmy. I called it the Uber Drive. I built one of these before and I made a mistake and I used a 2-position switch, but this actually has a middle position for this diode clipping, right? So I did this one correct with the 3-position switch. I mean, the first one works, it's just missing one of the options, you know?
Okay, and what are the 3 options then? You've got one with the diode clipping, or are all of them?
It's like a tube screamer, so it has diodes in the feedback path of the op amp. And the choices are 2 diodes back to back, right, facing different directions. One of the choices is 2 diodes on one side in series and 1 diode going the other direction. And then the third option is 2 diodes in both directions. So like 4 diodes, 3 diodes, and 2 diodes would be the choices. That I don't actually don't hear that big a difference.
Okay, that's surprising. I would think that you'd hear like, you know, like maybe you need more gain or something like that to hear the difference.
Maybe I just it was the difference was there, but it sounded pretty subtle to me. You know. And then I also built this. I built another Big Muff. I kind of updated my Big Muff PCB, and you know, I just kind of made a couple small changes, and I built one of those to test it out. So I milled this one up with some abstract kind of circles, and then got this.
You said that's a Big Muff?
No, this is Ugly Face. Did I say
Ugly
Big Muff?
Face.
I meant Ugly Face.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I'm getting old, you know.
Oh, it's okay. You know.
Yeah. So I updated.
You introduced it earlier as a Ugly Face. I'll be sure.
That's Ugly Face. Yeah. So here's the new board right here. I just made a couple small changes on the board just to make it a little more user friendly, So there we go, so that was all taken care of there, It was kind of successful, like I like it when I build the things and they work.
Yeah, it's frustrating when they don't work.
Totally.
Sometimes it takes me a long time to get back to it.
Yeah. My suggestion is no social media in the morning.
You're
That's my
right.
thing. I feel more productive the entire day if I avoid social media in the morning.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great general rule. I also think that if you plan your social media as a kind of a update on the things that you did during the day, then it's definitely more, utilitarian. It's more, targeted activity. Um, I mean, I'm trying to get away from any social media that isn't productive. So like, I don't look at Instagram for personal enjoyment. I only look at Instagram, as part of the guitar DIY community. And,
Yeah.
like I should really be looking at it and posting there. Um,
It's kind of a vicious cycle,
yeah.
right?
But if you do it at the end of the day, it's like you've already done the things, you've already done the productive things. So now it's time to share and respond to other people's shares.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that. Maybe just post what you did for the day. That would be a
Mhm.
good rule.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so I was just feeling the other day, I avoided the social media in the morning and I just felt more productive. I went out, I did stuff, I came home, I did stuff, and I was like, wow, I got a lot done today. And I felt like doing stuff. I think there's a weird thing, like people talk about dopamine. And I think like,
Mhm.
if you do the social media in the morning, it sucks up your dopamine. And so then when you want to do something, you're like, I don't really feel like doing that right now. I'm just gonna scroll through some posts here because it's easy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I didn't feel that way. And I was like, maybe because I avoided the social media in the morning. So I'm gonna do that again. Let's try and do that all next week is my goal.
Okay, that's great. No, that's really good inspiration.
Yeah.
I think I've probably blown my dopamine in the morning on YouTube, and sometimes it doesn't even feel good. It's like
Yeah.
you're watching stuff about like politics or the
Oh,
January 6th hearings and stuff like that. It's
oh,
like,
the worst.
it's good to know about this stuff, but I don't need to watch it first thing in the morning. I need my energy. I need to like
Yeah.
feel creative throughout the day.
Yeah. Right. Hey, so next week we're gonna do the first meetup of the Eurorack SF.
That's right.
SF synth. I forget what I named the meetup, but we're gonna do the cafe. I don't know what we're gonna call it. The gorilla synth meet.
Cafe takeover.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it won't be a takeover. It'll be like stealth mission.
Yeah.
Ninja synth at the cafe. So anyway, we'll put a link to this in the description if anybody's in San Francisco and wants to drag their synth gear down to the cafe in the mission. You're invited.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a stealth mission, so we're not bringing speakers or PAs or anything like that.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it all headphones.
Headphones and
We don't want to
if
get
you've got
kicked out.
power,
We don't want to
right?
get kicked out on the first time.
I don't think anybody gets kicked out of a cafe for using their laptop, using the cafe's power or anything like that. So like there are probably things you can get away with, like um, using power, but don't be loud. Don't bring like a Yamaha DX7 and take over a whole table to yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're gonna do that. That should be fun. And then we're
Yeah.
gonna go head by the Mission Synthworks. That's be part of our activity plan.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited because I just learned about the existence of this place last week when you mentioned it. So
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I went in there. They had a nice shop. I recommend it. So
yeah, I think it says something that there's a brand new synth shop, and you know you don't see new guitar shops popping up at all anymore. But this is like I don't know. I think this is what the community wants and what it needs.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Hey, are you listening to any music this week?
I was introduced just last night to a band called Madrugada that's from Norway, and um, it's it's pretty cool. It's very serious. They're not on Bandcamp as far as I can tell, unfortunately. So if you find a band called Madrugada on Bandcamp, I don't think it's this band from Norway, but you can definitely listen to their music elsewhere, like I think on YouTube. And then I heard again, if you find a band called Brain Story, it might not be this band, but there's a Brain Story, all one word, from California. Is It's a band from California that I heard yesterday morning, and it was very cool. It's kind of like a little cumbia influence. I think it's three brothers started the band. They do kind of tour locally, not just in California, but the surrounding states. So that's got some good kind of lounge world influence to it.
Nice. I'm gonna go look them up.
Yeah, Brain Story, all one word. There's another Brain Story which I think was from like Portugal or something. I don't know, somewhere else in the world. Poland, that's where it was. That's psychedelic rock. You might like that too. But that's two words. Anyways, Brain Story with one word. That was the one I was looking for in the first place. So how about you?
Oh, you know what I did yesterday was I listened to Eternal Elysium,
Hmm.
and I
That sounds familiar.
listened to shoot, what was it? It was like I forget. Let me go look up the album now. I can't remember what it was.
On Bandcamp?
Yeah, they're on Bandcamp.
Okay.
But you know what I did was I listened to I just sat down and listened to the album and I didn't do anything else. Like I
Wow.
just put the headphones on and I just made it a listening, you know, just a listening session. Oh, it's Searching High and Low, or Searching Low and High is the
Low
album.
and high. Okay.
Yeah. I have a couple of their albums on the Apple Music, right, or iTunes. I think Apple Music and iTunes are different, but I have a couple of their albums on Apple because I listened to them like years ago before Bandcamp was a thing, but now I found them on Bandcamp, so I bought this album and I was listening to it on Bandcamp, and so it was kind of cool. I just made a listening session, and it wasn't so bad. It was like 40 minutes of music. I just sat down and relaxed, had a snack, and drank
Nice.
a cup of tea and listened to some music with the headphones on. It was a good activity, like I felt I was paying attention to the music,
Mhm.
and I kind of like those guys. I feel like they're kind of good, like stoner rock. I mean, it's kind of funny that a lot of the songs, they're all like, kind of have these weed references. And it's kind of cracking me up because I think like weed is illegal in Japan. So these guys are
Hmm.
totally like, every song is about weed, but it's totally illegal where they're from, which is kind of rough, I guess. But they're pretty creative. They're kind of good, They got a good like stoner rock vibe, they got a good mix of kind of like fast and slow songs, and some good like psychedelic kind of stuff going on in the background.
All right. Yeah, I'll check them out. Sounds like they've been around for a long time.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. I have this other album. It's called what is it? It's called Enter the Triad or something like that. What is it? Let me go look at. Sorry, I gotta. What is it? It's like what is the name of that album? Oh, Within the Triad. That's it. Yeah, I really like that album. That album's pretty good. That one's not on Bandcamp, so they must have released that somewhere, and then maybe they can't release it on Bandcamp also.
I hate it when things aren't on Bandcamp. I guess I
I
need to
know.
go with that.
Yeah, actually, the other thing I listened to was I listened to Morton Sabbatnik.
That
He's
sounds so
like,
familiar.
yeah, he's like an electronic artist. Originally, he played the clarinet, and I guess when he was a kid, he was kind of a virtuoso at the clarinet. Like he got in, he just played, and they just immediately accepted him into music school. And then after high school, he went to college and he played in the symphony. So he's kind of a music, you know, person, right? It's kind of a career music person. But then he kind of saw the world. This is in like the early 60s, right? So like before the Summer of Love, like 1962, 1963, before I was born. And he got this idea that the world is changing and technology is coming in. And he kind of was like, yeah, you know what? Credit cards are a new thing. And everybody's just going to use credit cards. There won't be any paper money in the future. you know he saw tape machines and he said, like, whoa, you can sample audio and you can play it back. So the future is going to be in this sampled audio and playing it back. But they didn't have samplers back then. There was just
Mhm.
like cassette tapes or like reel to reel tape, right? Um and so he wanted to do that. He's like, screw this like clarinet. I'm going to get into this electronic stuff. But electronic music didn't exist. So I think he started this thing called the San Francisco Tape Center with a couple other people. And what they did is it was kind of like this collective, and they would make electronic music using tapes, and they'd splice the tape together. But he didn't want to splice the tape. So he started looking for a person to make electronic instruments where they would make the noise, right? They would make the sound, right? But they didn't have synthesizers back then. Like Robert Moog had not released the Moog yet, right? Wendy Carlos had not released Switched on Bach, right? And he found this guy, Don Buchla, and he got Don Buchla to make the Buchla 100 series synthesizer, right? The 100 system. And so he went back and forth, and like, you know, uh, uh, Morton told Don, like, here's what I want, and then Don came up with the ideas and built the machine. And then Morton made a record in like 1963, maybe, called Silver Apples of the Moon.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was this electronic thing. And like, he'd been doing this electronic music with the Buchla, and he didn't think anybody would want to buy it or sell it. And then somebody came to him, they'd heard some samples of it, and they were like, oh yeah, we want to publish this. And he said the first thing he did was throw the guy out of his studio. He said he lived in New York, and people would just come in off the street because there was like some like studios where people were recording rock music down the street, and they'd stop by and see what Morton was doing with his synthesizers, and they'd talk and stuff. And so like he says one night this guy wanders in and he's like, hey, I want to record what you're doing. And he's like, if you're full of shit, get out of here. And so the guy had said that he was from None Such Records. And so Morton says later, I looked him up and then I realized he was a serious record producer. I thought he was just full of baloney. And so I tried to call him up, and it was like they weren't in the phone book. And, like back then you didn't have the internet, so you couldn't just look someone up. And then luckily the guy called him back. And then Morton said that he was willing to do the recording for free because he was like, he didn't think anybody would want to listen to this music. And what happens is the guy calls him back a second time and says something like, hey, we're willing to give you $500, or we'll give you $1,000 to record your music. So he said he was ready to say he'd do it for free. And then the guy calls back and says, well, we'll give you $1,000. And then apparently they produced this record, right? And it sounded like it was like a smaller record. Maybe it was like a 78 or something, because I think like the album that you get nowadays, it has Silver Apples Part A, Silver Apples Part B, and then there's the Wild Bull Part A and Part B on the backside. So there's like 4 songs. But it sounded like from the story, the interview that I heard, that he just recorded the Silver Apples, like the two parts to it, Part A and Part B, and they went on each side of the record for the original record. And originally he meant that they should play one into the other, but you had that, just as part of the media, you had to flip over the record, right? you know But anyway, so they recorded the thing, and apparently they sold like 10,000, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but for like classical music and like weird avant-garde electronic classical that people hadn't heard before and was like an untried thing, selling 10,000 records was totally unexpected. He thought they were going to sell like 200 and that would be it. And then people started asking about it, and they wanted to like make, use it for dance music, like at like dance companies, theater type dance, so he like that just jump started his whole like I guess his career was already going, like he had some stuff going on, but like all of a sudden that was like paying the bills.
That's great. Well, I mean, I guess the lesson is if somebody comes into your studio, throw them out. Make them
Yeah, throw him out.
come back with money. Come back when you got some money, kid.
Yeah. I want a phone call with $1,000. I'm just kidding. But anyway, yeah. So you know what? I found Morton Sabbatnik on Bandcamp. He's got.
Really? Okay.
What's
Excellent.
interesting is you can't listen to Silver Apples on Bandcamp, which was the first recording. And what's super interesting about Silver Apples of the Moon is that it was a piece that was all played on this Buchla synthesizer, right? And you could play the whole thing. Like it was, I think if I understand correctly, it wasn't done with a bunch of overdubs, right? I think that it was made where it was kind of a complete piece, right? Where the synthesizer would play it all. And he wanted, in order to do that, they had to invent the sequencer. And in the interview that I heard, he said that Robert Moog called him up and said, everybody's asking about the synthesizer or about the sequencer thing. What is it? Because, like 2 years later, like in like 1965 or 67, somewhere around there, Wendy Carlos releases Switched on Bach. So Silver Apples came out first, right? And it's this totally weird abstract thing. It just sounds like, the soundtrack to Forbidden Planet, right? And then Wendy Carlos later comes out with the big, like a huge selling synthesizer record, which is Switched on Bach, but like, Morton had already done the album, and the Switched on Bach record had to be done with multiple overdubs. You could never play it live unless you got, a symphony worth of musicians each playing one Moog synthesizer, because they were all monophonic,
right? Didn't Wendy Carlos also do the Clockwork Orange? It was Beethoven, I think.
Maybe it might have been, maybe, I don't know, that I'm not sure about, but maybe I could see that. They might have taken some of Switched on Bach. I guess they couldn't do it, it was all Beethoven. I
think it's all Beethoven.
I think you're right. You keep saying that, the Ludwig van,
Yeah.
We got to review Clockwork Orange.
Oh, that'd be great. That would be great. The thing that I remember about that, like Malcolm McLaren's character, he goes to this little booth and it's like a record store, but he buys a micro cassette of Beethoven, and it's Wendy Carlos.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, for sure. She came out with a Switched on Bach 2000, I think, something like that too. It was like another Switched on Bach, I have Switched on Bach. It's great, I have it on CD though, so like I don't listen to it anymore, but if you could get it on Bandcamp, I'd be listening to some Switched on Bach.
I thought you were going to say if you could get on a micro cassette.
If I had a micro cassette player, I would do that. Actually, let me throw in one other thing about Bandcamp, Morton Sabbatnik, and the Buchla. So Morton said in the interview that I read, he said that Silver Apples was not that great, or not that it wasn't great, but it wasn't the music that he wanted to make, because it was this new instrument and he was trying things with it, and it was hard, it was kind of hard to get it to do the things that he wanted to do. So it wasn't exactly what he wanted to make. And he says, a couple years later, he makes an album called, or two songs. One's called what is it called? It's like the something of spring, or Until Spring, is it? It's like Until Spring. And then there's another one called Cloudless Sky of Sulfur, right? And he said those songs were pieces were what he like what he wanted to make. It was like those, like when you listen to those were kind of like when he envisioned the music, that this is what it would really sound like. I think with Silver Apples, like he was struggling, and it was a new thing, and it, the instrument was new, you know, so it was like he was trying to do something and trying to get it, but it wasn't exactly what he had in mind. But these two are, and those two you can listen to on Bandcamp.
Okay, I'll check that out. I mean, I think the idea of sorry about the sirens. I think the idea of making the music that's in your head on kind of a headless synthesizer, it's really difficult. Like the music that I make on the Micro Freak, it never ends up sounding exactly like I want it to. I mean, I try, and sometimes get it in the ballpark, but there's idiosyncrasies. It's not like like an instrument that you play like a guitar where you have to consciously play every note. I mean, it has a sequencer, so you can sequence it to play a prescribed series of notes, but there are a lot of variables and there are a lot of different, there's a lot of mistakes you can make.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the synthesizer, trying to get like a modular synthesizer to do the same thing twice is not impossible, but it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Some things, it depends on what you're doing. Like certain things you're like, okay, I could always get this to sound correct, but other things there's just so many variables, it's really hard to reproduce.
Right. And I would imagine that once you get that idea, like Don Buchla probably said, well, now my idea of what this synthesizer is going to sound like is tempered by the experience that I had trying to make this first record. So the second one will sound like I have a template for how it's going to sound, and it'll sound, similar to what I've produced in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that, he went through a lot, like trying to get the sounds to sound the same after playing the piece over and over again. He said he did a lot of iteration. So he'd play a part and then he you know what he said was, he said that he tried to separate his music production into a couple phases. So like where one, he would be the composer and he's composing the sounds, and then two, he would be the listener, and he really had to separate himself. And so what he did is, this is kind of a weird story. He says, he's like, yeah, I was working on Silver Apples, and at one point I needed to separate myself from composing the music just to listen to it and understand what it was. So what I did was I went out onto the street and I found 4 or 5 people, and I said, invited them into my studio, and I said, okay, so I just want you to invite you in here. You're going to listen to a piece of music with me, and I don't want to hear any comment. You don't have to say anything about it. And then when the piece is done, you can just leave. he's like, I don't want your opinions. I don't want to hear anything. And then what he said was, he set up a couple chairs in the studio. He started the synthesizer, and then he sat with the people. Like, and they all just sat together and listened, and then he's like, okay, see you later. But he said it was really important to set aside or separate himself to where he was the listener and he was the audience, and there was more to it. He had a big theory around this whole thing too. You kind of have to hear in his interview,
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I with a lot of bands, I never have the chance to actually listen to it because we're not recording. We're just playing for people, or we're just playing for practice. And so you never hear what it really sounds like because you're only listening to yourself performing your little part and trying to stay in time. So you're listening to the whole thing, but you don't get that objective impression until you've recorded it and you're somewhere else and you're able to listen to it similarly to how it sounded when you performed it. I did that recently with our friend Dan, and this it was recorded onto a phone and there was a lot of distortion, but I had a very different impression of the music once I was listening as a listener.
Yeah, it's a good idea, So after reading that Morton Sabbatnik thing, I sat down and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to listen to Eternal Elysium. I don't know that he meant that we should apply that to stoner rock, but I just thought, I'm just going to sit down and listen to this, I got to do that with my own music, just sit down and
Definitely. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think a lot of people probably just like, they always think, oh, I suck. I play guitar, but I suck. But if they ever listen to themselves, or if they recorded themselves, maybe recorded themselves playing a song, they would say, oh, I don't suck.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, right. Or you might listen, you might say, well, that sucked, but then that was okay. And then this is all right, but I wonder what it would sound like if I played it differently or faster or, whatever.
And in any of those cases, it's good to do that. You should, like, have some perspective on your music, listen to what you did, and say, I could do it better if I did it this way, or,
Yeah,
I really like that.
self-reflection is good.
So, thumbs up to me. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Hey, so why don't we call it a day? I think we've discussed everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We've
Anything,
been going on
any
for
final
40 minutes.
words here?
No, just thanks for watching. If you're watching this, and if you happen to be around this Friday at noon in San Francisco's Mission District, and you've got a portable synthesizer that you want to kick out the jams with us on, come on down. We'll put the
Yeah.
info in the description.
Yeah, it's on Meetup, right? So join our Meetup, okay?
Join our meetup. Yeah.
Right. We'll put it in the description.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Eurorack SF is the Meetup.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So join our meetup, even if you don't want to go on Friday, or if you can't go.
Yeah, just join
Join
the meetup anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're going to do, this is the first one. We're going to do this again.
Yeah.
And, like, maybe it'll eventually we'll be out in a field, or, we'll be in Grace Cathedral or whatever.
Grace Cathedral. Yeah.
Sneak in there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe St. Mary's,
Yeah.
I've been in St. Mary's and I listened to the guy play the organ. He's really good, It's kind of cool. They have this weird organ. It looks like it's like part of a spaceship,
Oh, cool.
piloting that weird shaped building from the organ bay. I went in there one day and I just sat down and they were playing the organ. And so I got out my sketchbook and I was just sitting on the pew and drawing. And then a guy walks up to me and I was like, oh man, is he going to kick me out? And then he's like, he points at my hat. He's like, got to take your hat off. Like, I had my hat on. You don't wear your hat in church.
You can't wear any kind of hat.
I totally did miss that.
It wasn't like a hat that said "F you" on it or something.
Yeah. No, it didn't. It was just like a hat,
Okay.
It was just funny. I was like, oh, oops, I took my hat off. Okay, cool. See you later.
All right. Thanks for watching.